time coming. Hey guys, Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. It's been crazy last few days. Still not done with renovations. They haven't even done my window yet. And that's really what's held me back from making content. But this morning I'm just saying the heck with it. I'm just gonna wake up even earlier than what I already do, which is normally 5 a.m. and just try to see if I can make this work. Hopefully it does get through. If it doesn't, apologize again. I'll probably just make a post, but urgent day of severe weather ahead here. We have an enhanced risk ongoing right now. Yesterday was a little bit on the quieter side, but today might be a little bit of a different story. I did a live stream on Sunday and I was highlighting what was expected in the days ahead. And Tuesday was a day that I had put extra emphasis on. Here's the enhanced risk that is all the way from Woodward, Oklahoma, all the way into the the south central tip of Nebraska here. Main threat is hail, but there's also a 5% tornado threat and a 15% wind threat. The threat itself stretches from, all the way from the Canadian border all the way into the U.S.-Mexico border, which is crazy. But widespread potential for severe weather here. Main catalyst behind this is going to be an upper level trough for really the next couple of days. This risk again exists tomorrow. This is going to be associated with an upper level jet streak, and risk types are pretty much the same. Parameters are slightly different for now. Hail still at a hatched risk, only at a 15% for now. We'll have to see if that ends up being upgraded. Wind threat is at 15, and then we have 2% tornado threat. We'll see how that plays out from that point. But by the time we get to day 3, though, good news is no severe storms expected. So we do begin to quiet down after this point, and then from 5, 6, 7, and 8 days, we are looking like we're potential too low. This is when we start to get in a little bit more of that zonal pattern, and we start to shut off some of that moisture return as well. So just got to get through the next couple of days. Things will look better soon enough. But this is what our current trough is looking like. We're looking about 39 to 41,000 feet in the air. This is what 200 millibars. This is where our 200 millibar height is. We can clearly see a pretty stout looking trough at this point. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out here. This is definitely a trough. It's ridging right here. So this is where our collision of warm and cold air masses are. And then this would allot for Gulf of Mexico moisture to come in this slot here. That being said, though, continue to roll this forward. This is getting into the early part of the afternoon today. Trough holds together really nicely, and just as that starts to break down a little bit, we get this jet streak that develops, and this is what's going to help aid in the setup for Wednesday here. Do I think this will play an increased role in tornado potential? Kind of hard to say. You really want to look more so towards the lower levels of the atmosphere, but it's cool to see this. It's kind of cool to see the jet streak. You don't see it too much during this time of year. It can happen, but usually you'll see this more in spring. But that's also what makes fall a little bit more dangerous, and actually why we consider it as the second season for severe weather, because normally during the summer, the jet stream doesn't really end up being that strong. There's not much amplitude with it. So to see this is definitely an indicator of the times changing, so to speak. That being said, as we continue to go along here, you can see everything kind of levels out a little bit. Instead of having a really stout trough, this becomes the amplitude kind of drops off a bit, becoming a little bit more zonal. And then as time goes on, we'll actually probably see this become even more zonal, which would lead to more fair weather, but also some cooler temperatures lie ahead too along with this. We'll get into a video later this week about that, because renovations are expected to be done, or at least the windows will be expected to be done, so I won't have to tear my room apart every morning just so I can sleep in my bed. But that being said, let's go ahead and look at some of the lower level winds. This is looking towards the mid level of the atmosphere. It's about 500 millibars here. So we looked at what our trough looks like, and then this is what our I'm trying to remember what I'm talking about here. Tired, man. But we're looking at this mid-level jet here, and this is going to be the key component as well in regards to severe weather here. This is looking towards mid-afternoon for a large part of the Central Plains. Do have a pretty good look at this point of our setup, so to speak. I like the way that we got the ski jump here. So storms could fire earlier in the afternoon. If we can, I'm going to try to live stream it. I think as we get later into the evening, we'll probably have this drop off. So not sure if I'm going to be able to catch this one in time. I'm going to try, but we'll see how this plays out. And then as we go into Tuesday here, we get a little bit of a kinematic setup. Definitely not as impressive as today's setup by any stretch. It's a very small area where I think tornado genesis could be possible on Wednesday, but not likely at this point. And then after that, mid-level jet just becomes a lot less impressive. A lot more zonal, not much amplitude like I was talking about with the upper level jet. Pretty much a similar deal. It all kind of goes hand in hand. Then as we go into the lower parts of the atmosphere, this is just above our low level jet here. It's about maybe 10,000 feet. Pretty similar deal. The mid levels are looking pretty impressive with this as well. So I think everything's on the table here, just looking at it from a kinematic standpoint. Couldn't even rule out a strong tornado possibly. I don't know if they're going to upgrade this to 10% or hatch 10% or anything of that sort, but I'd be foolish or remiss to say that it wouldn't be out the cards. So we got to definitely be on watch for that. Looking at the 700, and this is what I think is going to really inhibit tomorrow's tornado threat with a slight risk. It's just not really much there towards the mid to low levels of the atmosphere. The lower we go, the less impressive this setup is kinematically, and I think that's undoubtedly going to play a factor in tornado, or lack of tornado genesis, I should say. So look at the low level jet, and you can also even kind of see a little bit of a tell as far as the moisture giveaway is concerned, moisture return is concerned, the direction that it's moving. So this ridge is coming into play here, as you can see here. This ridge is moving in a clockwise direction. So what happens when we're moving in a clockwise direction? Pretty simple here, really. So here we go here, and then boom. Right, like we were saying when we were looking at the 200 millibar map, here's our moisture return right in our hot zone, which is going to be here. So definitely something that we're going to have to watch over towards, of course, like I said before, over towards Oklahoma, Kansas, and maybe parts of Nebraska as well. Of course, there's secondary areas of moisture return, although parameters don't come quite as well together. Like, for example, over, and this is a terrible circle, but over towards South Dakota, Minnesota, wouldn't be surprised to see some action there, maybe even a tornado. But I think the further off to the south, the moisture return is going to be better. However, the kinematics are probably going to be a little less impressive. Nonetheless, though, definitely something to keep an extra close eye on throughout the day today. Make sure I keep the time frame in here for you guys. But as we continue to go forward here, this is going on throughout the day. Low level jet kind of takes shape around 21-22Z. So like I said, mid-afternoon. Going to be sketchy as far as trying to get in here to cover this. If I can, I definitely will, of course. But that also depends on whenever they get done with my windows. It's been driving me nuts. But after that, looking at tomorrow's setup, see what I'm saying? Low-level jet just isn't really there. You need that low-level jet for tornado genesis. Even with just severe storms in general, you need a decent amount of influence from the lower levels. Although mid to upper levels will still get you some storms. Definitely a better chance for hail with this setup from what I'm seeing here for sure, though. Maybe some damaging winds, but on the fringe of this, you might have a shot at a tornado. But see, this sounding even indicates it pretty well. Even then, at this point, instability is probably looking like it's going to be limited by this point in time. I think we need to go back about 2 hours. This looks a little better, but like I said, really, I'm going to disregard this tour sounding simply because of how weak the low levels are looking. Even the mid levels aren't that strong. And I think that's definitely going to be an inhibiting factor. Storm looks like it's also elevated on the skew T here. This is the surface point right here, right at this little bar that has the the number 1000 here. You usually want this, your storm relative velocity, to be touching that surface or just barely above. We're moderately elevated at this point. So that being said, I'm thinking we're leaning more towards damaging winds and hail here. We have some notable lapse rates and good thermodynamics with this setup. We're going to get into the thermodynamics a little bit more in just a moment here. But as a whole, it looks like, for the most part, today looks like the big day, and then tomorrow is gonna be a chance for severe, but it's not gonna be anything insane. I don't even know if there's still some fail parameters that could stop today from being anything crazy as well. There's just not as many as tomorrow, I should say. There's less fail parameters today. As we go over the next couple of days here, as far as temperatures are concerned, today's setup, we're at a good air temperatures here, about 85 degrees. It's pretty good setup as far as the thermals are concerned. There is a bit of a cap here, and this is a weak one, but nonetheless, I think with the mid-level jet, we can get that cap to move here. Are some parameters, like I said, there are some things that are kind of coming into play here that are inhibiting the tornado setup. EHI isn't incredible. The energy helicity, lift index is pretty low. So, like I said, it's not like this is going to be a guaranteed severe outbreak or anything like that. This day has its own set of fail parameters as well. And then by the time we get towards OOZ, I think a lot of the activity will start to dwindle as we lose instability and daylight. Because that's one thing about fall. The severe setups are going to have to happen earlier in the day unless you have a really good nocturnal setup because the sun sets sooner, as we all know. So that being said, we keep this moving along. We get into Wednesday here. Storms form along this boundary here. And it's going to be pretty much a similar deal. Temperatures in the 80s. Moisture returns are going to be sufficient for severe weather. And then from that point, we'll go right to the dew points. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and take a look at about 21Z. And here we go. 65, 67 degree dew point, 68 degree dew points actually. We get a good return early in the day. By the time we get later into the evening, moisture return's still good, but we'll probably start to lose some of that instability, some of that oomph here. And then as we go into tomorrow, feast rise in Texas right here, particularly towards Lubbock, where we have dew points near 70 degrees. So think a small multicellular cluster will probably occur here. This is just without looking at the reflectivity models here, or composite reflectivity. But based off what I'm seeing here, multi-cell clusters are likely, I would say, from this. Some of which could be severe. It's not going to be a widespread severe event as far as I'm concerned, though. As far as the thermos, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the lapse rates here. I don't know why these keep on jumping out so far ahead. I'm trying to keep them at base time to start out with. Some decent lapse rates, nothing incredibly steep, but still favorable for hail, especially towards central central Nebraska and Kansas here. Getting to 7.6 degrees Celsius per kilometer here. Go on the fringe of that here. This is a little bit better kinematically, but I do think this has a multicellular, maybe a linear type deal going on here. Maybe embedded supercells possible with this as well. There is a chance for discrete supercells with this as well, with these lapse rates being so steep. but I think the corridor for it is going to be rather small. This is about 21Z, so definitely, like I said, towards central Kansas is definitely going to be a point of interest here. But I'm seeing a lot of indicators for linear just based off of this model. Damaging wind potential probably will, like I said, go up earlier, go up to a enhanced risk, maybe even a hatched risk. Sorry about that, guys. But as we get into the afternoon tomorrow, there is a point here where we get some pretty steep lapse rates. We get to about 7.3. Like I said, marginal tornado threat not impressive, but the significant hail parameter, different story. We're at 2.4, and a good base number would be 1. So could be some big time hail. Tomorrow could be worth streaming because I do like talking about hail and stuff. I think it's pretty cool to look at as well. So probably try to do that at the very least if I can't do today. But either way, it looks like at least the next couple of days are going to be active. We're going to go ahead and look at a couple other parameters, mainly the instability or cape. Dang it. I got so much gunk in my throat this morning. What's wrong with me? Excuse me, though. But 22, 23Z here. This is when we have the most explosive cape. So I think I do have a shot at maybe trying to cover this. Well, like I said, I'm going to have to take a look at what time I get off work, try to see if I can speed through it, and then blast back home. Like I said, hopefully these guys will be done. We should be the next build. We should be the next home to get all the stuff done. So I'm hoping. I'm really hoping. Anyway, though, this is what our tornado. This is a good tornado sounding right here from the looks of it, at least as far as the hodograph is concerned. There are some parameters here that I'm not as impressed with. Directional shear isn't the greatest, but the low-level wind, the low-level jet looks a lot more impressive on here than tomorrow's setup for sure. Good lift index. Actually, parameters look pretty good for this one. So, like I said, definitely need to be on the lookout as we get later into the evening. I do think that we're probably going to be seeing either something linear, maybe some embedded supercells, at least according to the NAM here. HRRR was not loading by the time I was doing this video, so didn't have that option available to me. A lot of ample instability as far as Wednesday is concerned, so definitely need to be keeping an extra close eye on that. Definitely thinking hail's still going to be the main threat. Very good thermodynamics for tomorrow for sure. Then last but not least, because I'm not going to have too much more time on my hands here, I'm going to take a look at the composite reflectivity. If you see a little dark streak on here, that's an indicator of updraft helicity, which is usually a good indicator for an increased threat for severe weather. We get into 22Z, and here's our little line here with embedded supercells. So damaging wind, tornado potential, hail, definitely in the cards for this particular cluster of storms, should that scenario come to be. And then a little bit further towards the south, as this line continues to develop, I think that's when the tornado threat will shift. And then before we know it, it's over. So, like I said, I have a chance of covering this. Just got to get back home. So we get to 21, 22Z tomorrow. We get a couple of discrete elevated storms here, definitely leaning more towards a hail threat. And then as we continue to go into the evening, so OZ, we see a couple of multicellular clusters here. Definitely could cause some problems towards the Oklahoma, Texas line here. And then this forms into an MCS, of course, overnight. See rain in Dallas. And then out after that, out this system goes. Watch it fall apart, and we're done from that point with severe weather. Could see a marginal risk on Thursday, but I find it rather unlikely at this current point. That being said, gonna get out of here now, get ready for work. Appreciate you guys being here. It's been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Definitely need it now since I've been off kilter because of the whole renovations thing. Try to get back into the algorithm. Everything you guys do helps. That being said, you guys take care. Have a nice day, and I hope to see you this afternoon.